Good morning and welcome to Wholesome Roots. Well, it's not morning anymore, but it's afternoon and I'm finally getting to do what I've been wanting to do, getting my hands dirty and transplanting these poor little tomato plants. They've been needing to be transplanted for a while, but with everything, with the goats giving birth and everything, I just kind of got behind on things. So now I'm trying to get caught up and I'm gonna go ahead and transplant these into bigger pots so that I can be ready to transplant them into the garden once our neighbor tills it for us. Alright, so my seed starting mix has been used for the first stage. The second stage is going to be a mix of this cocoa peat and this is just regular compost soil with a little bit of perlite in it, or vermiculite. And so the cocoa peat, you're supposed to hydrate really well before you use it. So I've been soaking it for a couple of days because I meant to do it the day that Fancy went into labor. So it is all hydrated well now, and I'm gonna mix some of this in my bucket, just enough that I need for right now, and I'm gonna mix it with some of the compost mix as well. And I'm gonna stir that up and I'm gonna put it in this tray. And this is gonna be a good size up for the tomatoes. The tomatoes are about as big as my finger, so that'll be a good growing medium for them. And we'll just mix it up and I'll show you as we go. All right, so with tomato seedlings, you can actually bury most of the stem without worrying. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and do that. It's not only something that you don't have to worry about, it's actually beneficial because it produces more roots for the plant, which means it makes it a stronger plant. More roots encourages the plant to grow taller and better and stronger and collect more nutrients and moisture. So I'm just putting a small amount of my potting mix in the bottom of the seed tray, or plug tray as this would be. Just enough to, you know, barely cover the bottom so that when I put the little seedling in, it's not touching on plastic, but good moist composty soil. So it won't dry out on the bottom. Ideally, it's best to transplant your tomato seedlings when they develop their second set of leaves. So the first set of leaves are just their they're just their seed leaves and they don't really do much. It's when they start producing the true leaves that look like tomato leaves that you know it's ready to transplant. And when I'm putting this compost mix in this seed tray, I'm making sure I remove any of the bigger pieces. It's just gonna block the way for the roots to grow down into the soil. So we wanna give the roots plenty of ability to move around. Then I'm going to press that soil into place, finding any extra sticks, but not firmly, just using 2 fingers to kind of make a divot in the middle so that when I put my seedling in, it'll sit inside the little bowl that I just created with my fingers. This is something that I used to do my very first job in agriculture was working in a greenhouse, and we transplanted thousands and thousands and thousands of tomato plants. That was one of their biggest things that they did on that farm, was grew tomatoes, and they also sold seedlings. So what we would do is, even at a smaller stage than this, we would poke holes with a pencil and stick the tomatoes in, and we would bury them as deep as we could. So you may remember that I started with 10 seedlings per variety. Now we lost a lot of them during the water issues, so I don't have exactly 10 of all of them. Only some I ended up with 10 of. So what I'm going to do is make sure that I've got the correct variety and see where I separated the line at. And I am going to make sure that I'm not grabbing any other ones with it. And I'm just going to gently pick them up by their stem and place them in the hole. And I'm going to do that. Now, I thought that these seed blocks would make this easier, but because I've waited so long, they've grown together. So that's my fault. Alright, this one is really small and kind of wilted, so I'm going to give it a little extra soil to support itself with, because it doesn't want to stand up. So I'm just going to gently, and I'll make sure I water that one in really well. So as you see, the tops of the tomato plants are just barely over at the top of the tray, and they are going to be buried all the way up to the base of the leaves. And that's actually the same thing I do when I plant them in the garden, so this will be done to them again. Alright, and I make sure that I put my label with the correct ones. This next set actually came up in one block all together, so that actually worked out nicely. There is a little bit of clinging together here that I'm having to separate, but it's not too bad. Not all transplants, seedlings, can be treated the same way. Tomato seedlings are very forgiving. You can actually rip the roots if you have to. There's a dead one. And it's not necessarily going to harm them. Now, you don't want to go purposely ripping roots, and you don't want to rip a lot of roots, but a little bit of pulling in between is actually perfectly okay. So I think I'm gonna just stick this one that was pretty much dead in with another one, just in case it bounces back. You never know, tomatoes are very hardy. Alright, so I've got all of them placed in and labeled appropriately, and then I am going to cover them up with soil. So as with anytime you plant something, you want to water it in really well. So I just took it out to the hose and showered it down with the shower setting on the hose, and that helped remove any air pockets that may be in the soil. And now what I'm doing is making sure that any leaves that got pushed down by the water are standing up freely. Sometimes the soil just splashes over the tops of the leaves and it holds it down, and it kind of messes up the way it grows. So I'm releasing any leaves from under the soil that went under the soil. Even though I was careful with the hose, it's still a hose. So, but I wanted to make sure that I gave it a really good water to remove any air pockets. Air pockets will get you. You don't know they're there, you can't see them, and it'll cause the roots to dry out. I make sure that there's not any cells that didn't get enough soil to begin with. Like this one, for instance. It's kind of shallow. Got a lot of stem exposed, so I'm going to go ahead and add a little soil there. And that one. And I'm always trying to encourage the stem to be in the center of the cell so that the roots have equal amount of distance on all sides to grow. Alright, that's it. All done. Now I just gotta do the rest, but that's enough to show you guys. That's how I do it. Put it back under the light, keep the light within 1 inch of the plant, and you're good to go. Alright, got them all watered in and ready to go. 3 trays of tomato seedlings. I cannot wait. Oh, I love tomatoes. And I think I'm going to start some more tomatoes too, because we have a long growing season in Georgia and I have a lot of varieties I want to grow.